you make the content so niche that only a certain subset of people are going to understand it.
This one's for the disruptors, the uncommon, the unconventional, the rebels. You're not here to take things lying down. Well, season 2 is about shaking things up. I'm Beatrice, and this is the Art of Branding podcast. Be ready, be badass. Let's shake some shit up.
For the kinds of guests we have on the Art of Branding, today's guest is very different. Aiden is the head of social at the Marketing Millennials, taking the brand to 1 million followers on LinkedIn. And well, I think you've actually passed that. And the stats he's achieved in the 2 years working that, well, they're pretty darn badass. And through memes for the most part. If that isn't shaking things up, then, well, I don't even know what is. Okay, so memes are technically my kryptonite. For some reason, I don't even know why. Give me a video to do.
Oh, we're going to change that. Yeah. After this, that'll be different.
Most other content styles. But memes, like, you guys take that to an art form. Like,
hey, it is an art form, but you can master it.
Exactly. So how do you make sure that they hit and aligns? Like, and with your overall brand identity, messaging, etc., like, to keep it consistent?
So it all starts with the questions you ask, like about your audience and the goals of the campaign or whatnot. So the memes we make, so we're a media company. So the type of memes we make, and we're a smaller media company. So we're going to be scrappier. We don't have a humongous legal department. So the memes we can get away with making are substantially different than, you know, the Fortune 500 company who's got a 30-person marketing team, 30-person legal department. And if they want to make a meme, it has to get through every single person to do so. Regardless of both situations, it all comes down to the questions you ask and how well you know your audience and consumer. Like, and it sounds so stupid, but like, to make someone laugh, you have to really understand them and understand what makes them click, right? Like, and if you want to indicate to your audience that you are smart as well, a great way to do that is through humor. So it really starts with the questions you're asking, and like I'm sure you've seen memes on your timeline where you're like, oh, this person's trying to be funny. When someone comes across as trying to be funny, that just is an indicator that they haven't done enough research on their audience they're trying to target. So the idea is there, but the execution isn't fully there because they don't 100% know like the verbiage or the way that would make someone like tick and like laugh in that niche. So that's like the overarching like theme. Like if you can't figure out how to crack memes, it's like ask more questions, really get to know your audience.
And then just Google like, hey, the where can I find a meme with somebody saying this? Or
well, I mean, that's another great thing, like taking inspiration from other brands who are crushing it. Great way, like using it as like a mood board almost for your memes. If you are trying to sell to your consumer, you should know them well enough that like, you know what would make them laugh. And if you don't, that's a problem.
Facts right there. So what do you remember the most successful one that you put out?
The way I would quantify success in this sense, just based off the type of question you just asked me, I would say the most successful one that I've ever made isn't the one that's most viral. I've had a video get 20 million views. That's like on paper, most successful, most reach or whatever. And it's a funny meme about like onboarding new hires. But the most successful as far as like impact individually, like on me and my career and like the people I'm working with, the companies I'm working with, is this meme I posted for my personal LinkedIn January of like 2021. And I was a junior in college and I was like really wanting an internship at like Apple or Google. But like, I'm going to be honest, I went to a state school, had a marketing, didn't even like was in marketing. Like my GPA was like 3.5, nothing really exceptional on paper. But I knew if I just got in a room with someone, talking with someone, I knew they'd be like, oh, we want this kid, because my competitive advantage is my ability to connect with other people and make them laugh. And so I was like, that's my way in. So I made this meme. It was right after I watched the new Spider-Man movie and with Tom Holland. And I was like, you know, following that process of everyone else's posts where it's like, I'm proud to announce that I got this job. Thank you to Jim for helping me along the way. I'm excited thanks Carrie for helping me along the way or whatever. And they post a picture of the logo. I did the same thing. And I was like, I'm proud to announce I got a job, or I got an internship at Stark Industries. Thank you, Tony Stark, for the opportunity. And I don't know if you're into Marvel or anything like that, but yeah, Tony Stark. So like, obviously I was being funny. And then at the end, I was like, on a serious note, I'm looking for a marketing internship. So like, it was a meme in the grand scheme of things, but not like a traditional meme, like image and text. It was more of like purely humor based. And like that went viral. It got like 1.6 million views. And within a week, I had 75 warm inbound job opportunities, like full-time internships. And it was like, so I had interviews with Walt Disney, Meta, Okta, Overtime Sports, like a bunch of different people. And I ultimately took the job at Overtime Sports, which is a media company based in New York, sports media company. I was hooked on it because I'm a huge Drake fan. My dog's named Drake, and Drake just had invested in this company. So I was like, oh, I'm going in. I'm working here. Even though it was like the worst job offer out of every single one I got. And I worked there for like 7 months, got fired. We can talk about that later. But so yeah, that's the most successful one because that really kicked off my career and made me realize like, yo, there's something with LinkedIn here. Like, this is cool. I can go viral on LinkedIn. So that's the most successful, I would say.
I mean, in terms of, okay, if we take this to, say, for example, B2B, how can they take that? Like, so going viral, at least to me, like it doesn't seem like something that is going to, and, you know, from everyone that I've spoken to, like it's not ideal people that are coming to you. Yes, like you're getting more eyes as a subsequent of that, right? But by itself, that post is not going to do a lot. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, when we were talking before, I thought about that a lot, and like definitely valid points. So going like blanket statement viral, like if you're a B2B brand, let's say you have 100 employees and you just raised a Series B and like, you know, you have business, like going viral for you is not going to do shit. Like going viral in a sense, like 20, 50 million views on a random video that has nothing to do with your product or service or the people you help or serve. So the workaround there is, and you can still reach this niche virality aspect, is you make the content so niche that only a certain subset of people are going to understand it, so that the only way it goes viral is it reaches those exact people and they share it with those other people who know they'll understand it. So let's say you get 2 million views on a video. It's a win if that initial meme you made is super niche. So you know that those 2 million views are people who actually understand it, because like a regular baseline meme that's generic, it's like, oh, there's 27 million views. Maybe only 1,000 of those people could be your client. But if you make it incredibly targeted and niche upfront, you're going to sacrifice that virality. But when it does go viral, you know for a fact it's only the people, I mean, not only, but like majority of the people that you want to target are being reached with that, if that makes sense.
So they need to be very clear in terms of who they're going for. I mean, to me, have you actually seen this kind of very niche video go viral, video or meme or what, like content?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Marketing Millennials is that to a T. Like we started B2B SaaS focused 100%. Now we have 1 million followers, so we're not as narrowed on that. But if you look at marketing as a whole, like there's way bigger levels than marketing, right? Like there's work memes, and then there's like corporate memes, and then it's like just memes in general. So marketing is still pretty niche. But yeah, absolutely. And like the different levels of virality, like for me, if you're a niche product and a niche service, like viral for you is like, 40, 50,000 views. That's a viral post in your niche. Instead of like, I mean, I think the typical person would say like 1 million views is viral, but like if you're getting 40,000 views in your B2B SaaS product, that's niche viral. Like, and that's a win.
I think that's what a lot of business owners mistake. It's like, even when I first got into this, I was like, oh, it needs to be 1 million or like, something crazy, right? But it's really based on your industry and where you're at and your market and everything. Like, it doesn't need to be a million.
And like you said, if you're like super niche product or service, like, and you're getting 1 million views on just like a generic meme, it's not going to move the needle for your business whatsoever. But if you're a super niche, generic brand and you post a meme that is so targeted that, like, if I sent it to my friend who's in a different industry, they'd be like, this is not funny at all, and it gets 50,000 views, that's a win. Like, because those 50,000 people are people that you're trying to target.
Comparison, views or reactions, engagement, that sort of thing. So like, views is one thing, right? Like, the algorithm might push it out to a lot of people because, people are watching it for longer, but maybe the engagement is super low.
Yeah, so I don't think it's an either or, and this is just me personally, but typically with algorithms, to get that larger influx of views, you need that larger influx of engagement unless you already have a big following. So most people listening probably don't have a big following on their brand account, maybe like 20, 50K, like that's pretty legit. I would say you typically just need those reactions to get those more views. So it's like, it's either or. Like, if I had a blanket statement, do I want more views or more likes? I would probably say more views.
I'd have to say I agree. Because the point is, like, people often don't react. And see, like, most business owners that you see, like, their business is based on LinkedIn or they're inbound, a lot of the time they haven't even spoken, like, they haven't reacted on their content. They haven't done anything. And there's suddenly a DM going, I need to work with you. Like, even me, all of my like inbound, they're like, I've not seen them. I've never seen them. And they're like, I have to work with you.
It's like, yeah.
Jumping back to this idea of niche and going viral on something. I remember recently Porsche and Croc, they did like a collab where Porsche, like, they redid one of their cars and it looks like one of those Croc shoes. Have you seen that video?
I haven't. No, I haven't seen that.
I will have to look on that because I posted about like their recent campaign, which to me I thought was genius because I don't like Crocs. I think they're ugly as fuck. So,
yeah.
They did a good ad recently, and it was leaning into like the Twilight movie, but they did a version based and directed at the people who don't like Crocs. Right? She's like, I just can't, like, we can't, Crocs are not allowed. And then eventually at the end of it almost turns into like a trailer, which I've started to see more ads like that. It's becoming more like a trailer, more like into that storytelling side.
Oh yeah.
And at the end of it, she's like, I can't, like, these are so good. It becomes like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a wild collab, Porsche and Crocs. I feel like if I'm Porsche, I am not doing that collab. I'm not, like, at all, because I feel like they have such a, like, the people buying Crocs are not the people buying Porsche. So I don't understand what do you know what they were trying to do, like, or is it just to ruffle some feathers?
To me, I believe they're leaning into that sports mode. So the car in that little like video, the car is like seen doing like drifting and stuff like that in this teeny little space. So it's not like they're downplaying the engine of the car, right? Like, it looks like a badass shoe car. So
okay,
that is super, super like niche there. What are your thoughts? Like, they're, people who don't like Crocs or who don't like Porsche, they're like, this is not for me. This is weird, right? Like, same thing as you just had that reaction. You're like, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, is it going to rub the wrong way on Porsche? Which it could border on, right? But I see the way that they've done it. And to me, like, it immediately clicks to that sports mode idea of like Crocs. and you know,
Like that's definitely a niche tactic, but like I'm still not sold on that because would you buy a Porsche?
probably not. I haven't really thought about it.
So it's like that's one of those things where that's a miss. It's like I mean I haven't looked at it, but like you understood it. You understood the joke immediately, and baseline like, oh, that's kind of smart. And like when you said that, I'm like, oh, that is kind of smart. I would buy a Porsche now. That would stretch me thin financially. Like I mean, I'm just someday I'll buy a Porsche, but to do that right now would be pretty tough. So it's like I'm still like my grandpa would buy a Porsche, but he would have no idea. He'd be like Crocs. He's like, what? Like not at all. So that's where I'm like,
It's very
but that is a niche move for them for sure.
what I read from somebody who was sharing it, they're targeting that towards Gen Z. So that goes into my next question, which I was going to talk to you about. So you're a Gen Zer and you're working in a business that's targeting millennials. So talk to me about the challenges and what that's been like.
It's honestly, I love it because it really it really challenges me because I'm a Gen Zer. Like I speak in Gen Z terms and everything. I honestly, just because I'm an oldest child and my parents are Gen X, I don't even know, my parents are 50. I really don't have anybody in my life that's a millennial. All my sisters are younger than me. All my friends are my age. Everyone I know is Gen Z, except Daniel and Ari. Like they're two of my best friends and like they're my mentors. And I'm very close with them. And those are like the two, when I think millennials, like those are my grasp of millennial culture. So it's a really big challenge. And what I've done to like work through that is like research, talking to Daniel and Ari, like hanging out with them and just trying to absorb like, you know, their little things that make them go. Like for my generation, like, you know, like there's way different habits. Everyone's on Snapchat, right? For them, it's way different. Like they're talking about these things called like MySpace and stuff that I had I never used. And like they're talking about Instagram back in or Twitter when it first launched. And like I didn't use Twitter till 2018. Like, so there's so many different things, but it's a really big challenge. And it all comes back to like using Reddit for research, like using just the internet to research like different things like the movies. And a lot of my research stems back to like the cultural things back when Daniel and Ari, or like millennials in general, were, you know, 8 to 16 years old, like the movies, the artists, the big national events, the world events, sports. So that does like ground a lot of my research.
I can imagine. So do you talk to them a lot in terms of like trying to get an understanding of these pop culture items or like the sense of humor? Because I imagine there might be some differences there in the things that, you know, resonate to millennials and resonate to Gen Z, even though there probably is a fair bit of like overlap in a few years.
Yeah, like I'm 23. I think Gen Zers, like the oldest Gen Zers are like 25 right now. So I'm like close to kind of being a millennial. And like Daniel and Ari I think Ari's like 29. So they're younger, on the younger side of millennials. So there is way more overlap. And you know how like, I know my parents' generation looked at millennials as like, oh, these guys are the fuck ups. Like, you know, they're too online and everything. We're even more so than that. And like, I know people saw millennials as like brash and like bold. Gen Z is 10x that. And I know like Daniel and Ari, they themselves are like always themselves, bold and everything. But they always say to me, it's like, your generation has no shame in the best way possible. Like everyone just does what they want to do. I talk to them a lot. And like, if I have questions, I'll explicitly ask the questions. But a lot of it just comes from like absorbing it and like naturally and like just talking to them. Like I literally was in a meeting 2 days ago and Daniel was like, yeah, there's a conference with SJP talking. And I just interrupted him. I'm like, who's SJP? And he's like, oh, Sarah Jessica Parker. And they all made fun of me. You're like, oh, Gen Z or whatever, because I didn't know who that was. And like, then I did some research on her and everything. But that's like how it goes sometimes. Like, I just don't understand the millennial references and I have to explicitly ask.
B2B businesses out there who are wanting to focus on, say for example, millennials, or they're wanting to focus on Gen Zs, etc. Are there any pieces of advice or tricks that you've learned in terms of marketing research or being out there in terms of their socials or their brand that you can suggest?
Definitely making references to each generation's popular cultural events. So like if you're trying to target millennials, like you probably shouldn't be talking about like Wizards of Waverly Place or iCarly or stuff like that. And you should be probably talking about like Degrassi and stuff like that, like those references. Or if you're making specifically memes, like one of the things we're targeting millennials and marketers, and there's a lot of women in marketing, and our demographic is largely women. So if I'm prompted like, oh, Aiden, we need to have a go-to-market campaign for this virtual event, and we want to get our audience to register. So on our website, am I going to build out and like add quirky things and references to like LeBron James playing basketball in the 2024 Olympics or like Steph Curry playing basketball? No, I'm going to make references to Mean Girls because we're targeting millennial women. That's one of the most pivotal movies in their when they were growing up. So like on our landing page, we're going to have a reference to Mean Girls, like these subtle things. So it like really comes back to pulling on those cultural events that each generation experienced when they were growing up. And that's like a specific example. Like we're having a conference in October, and if you literally look at our landing page, you'll see 2 references to Mean Girls right off the bat. And like you can clearly tell we're trying to target millennial women.
So if they want to be less obvious, because a lot of B2Bs, they're like, oh, we and it's a struggle, right? Like trying to make sure that go past that, like we don't want to offend people, but the idea is, you want to offend some people. Okay. But that being said, if they're trying to ease into standing out and using those pop culture references, what would you recommend?
You need to hire someone who actually knows what they're talking about and like is that person who makes those references throughout their day and everything. You can't just hire like I love my dad. If someone hired him to try and do marketing for like to relate to Gen Z, actually he could do that because he has 3 Gen Z kids. But for millennials, it'd be tougher for him because he's Gen X. I think he's Gen X, and he has no references to millennial culture. That would be tough for him to do. So you need to hire someone. Like if you're trying to target like millennials or Gen Z, obviously I'm a Gen Zer marketing to millennials, but like I spent a lot of time with Daniel and Ari who are millennials, and I've absorbed, their culture and everything. And I've always traditionally been a little more like, I don't want to say like, I've always been more interested in like the things that are, 1 or 2, 3, 4 years older than like what everyone my age is interested in. So like when I was 16, everyone's like, oh, we're drinking at the high school party. I'm like, how can I make money? Like, I want to make money. Like, let's start a business. But yeah, hire someone who just exudes that. But also to your point of like not wanting to offend someone, I'm going to be honest, like this is my take on it. Like if the person that you offend is never going to buy from you in the first place, dude, you can offend them all you want. Like it honestly will help you. Not everyone's going to buy from you. If you can offend the people that already weren't going to buy from you, that will actually help your brand, believe it or not.
Exactly. Pushing away those people who they're anyway going to drain your resources later on. I see a video of like, the horror clients, right? Like just asking things out of like all hours of the day, wanting more than than you really are offering in terms of your B2B service offering. So it's insane.
Yeah.
Is there anyone that inspires you or any brand that's shaking things up that you look up to?
Yeah, without a doubt. It's Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds, I personally think is the smartest marketer on the planet. And it all comes back to that humor piece and the fact that he just does whatever he wants and he's creative as shit. And he's obviously has multiple businesses, Mint Mobile, Aviation Gin, Wrexham FC. Like he has his own his own agency. It's called like Maximum Value or something, or Maximum Effort. It's literally called Maximum Effort.
Yeah.
Like, it's just he's so good. He is the quintessential marketer in 2024, like, in my eyes. And I think he needs to be studied.
I've looked into him because same thing, like he's crazy good at what he does. But you know what I see? I see that he's recognized what his strengths are, and he leans completely into that. So, whenever you see him, you expect that kind of like tongue-in-cheek content. Like you wouldn't expect him being completely serious. Like you'd be like, when's the other side dropping? What's
Yes. Which honestly puts him in a very powerful position, because he can predict how other people are going to engage with him off the rip, because they think he's just going to make them laugh. So that one or two times where he is fully serious, like, he is playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. They're going to think he's joking or not take it serious. Like, humor is like the smartest people on the planet are the ones who can leverage humor without a doubt. Like, without a doubt.
And even then, like it doesn't need to be humor. It, say for example,
just wit, like
wit, or George Clooney. There we go.
Oh yeah.
He knows his strengths, right? Like it's that refinement. You see that in his movies. You see that, like, with how he is with Nespresso.
Casamigos.
That's him. That's his essence. And even like, his kind of humor, it's almost, I can't even describe his kind of humor.
He's like suave, and he's like smooth, and he's refined, which is absolutely, it's like a great uncle who's made hundreds of millions trying to crack a joke with you as he's sipping on his tequila. That's $100 bottle of tequila.
He knows his stuff. And to me, that's how I say it in business, right? You have to know what your specific thing is, right? Whatever that thing is. And, I imagine joining, your previous company, or even Marketing Millennials, it's really understanding what that certain je ne sais quoi is, right?
Without a doubt. That is, if you can find the thing that you do naturally, and you just assume everyone else can do it well because you do it naturally and it's easy to you. If you can find that thing and you recognize that thing and lean into that more, like that's what it is. And I have a cousin I was talking on the phone with like 2 weeks ago about that, because he's like, he just got a full-time job at a great place, but he doesn't want to do that in the long term. And he's like, what do I do? Like, what business do I start? I'm like, well, what do you do naturally that you would just assume everyone else can do naturally as well? And like, just running through that stuff. But same goes with George Clooney and Ryan Reynolds. They've identified that, and they rinse and repeat.
So if a business has been around, say, for example, 10 years, 15 years, and they're like, from an outside perspective, they look like the others that are doing the exact same thing. If you're coming in and wanting to help them with, their socials, with their content, with their memes, etc., what would you do in terms of helping them to find that little je ne sais quoi that makes them them?
How big is the company? Is it like 10 people, or is it like 5,000?
Let's say 500, 200 to 500.
Okay. So in my eyes, that's a big company. So at that point, I could probably still get in a room with the CEO, and I'm sure the founders are still there. So it would really start with them. And like, I just want to understand them, because the brand as a whole is going to be it's a vessel of them, right? It's their ideas. They've crafted it. And like, just from talking to them, I could observe the things, or just listening to their past. If it's like, yeah, we built this company, bootstrapped it, sold it for 50 million. And it's like, okay, they've got some grit. Okay. The grittiness is what, like, that's one thing we can pull on, and we need to represent through the content. And then, if one of them's like, oh, I have 3 kids, and like, we're not, but I would get really tapped into the people who founded that company and like the origins of that company, if possible. And maybe if it's too big of a company, the only way you can get that is reading through the story of the brand online or not, or whatever. And then I would talk to the marketing department, the people running the marketing department, and just asking them their goals. Because humor is not going to work for everybody. It'll work for a certain set of people who realize they want to use humor. Like, I can't convince someone to use humor if they're completely against it internally and it won't help their business objectives. So like, it all just comes back to like just absorbing basically the ethos of the company, talking with the marketing department to see what their objective and goals are, really understanding their competition. And this is a caveat. Another reason why humor works so well is because it's a big differentiator. It's not often that you see brands using humor, except in a few select industries, and humor's impact and competitive advantage is weakened a little bit. Like the insurance industry, for example, every company uses humor. So you can't really lean on humor too much in an industry like that because it's not as much of a differentiator. So if they're in that industry, honestly, might look to pivot towards something else, like maybe talking head style content, super personable. But like, let's say they're not in that. I just look at their competitors, see if anyone's messed around with humor, and really just run from that. Like, so before I act on anything, say we need to do this, we need to do that. You just got to ask questions, get the direction of the brand, and like see if there's an alignment to, create humorous content, use some wit, add a touch of personality to the brand, see if the industry even wants it.
There are so many different styles of humor, right? And so many different styles that will work in different areas. So say, for example, you're working with a UK audience, right? Like, it's more of that darker humor that plays front, whereas, American humor or Australian humor it's all completely different, from the things that we find funny, but even the tone that you take with that humor, right? What actually resonates. So
absolutely, that's a very good point.
So there is one question that I ask everyone that comes on, and that is, what is the biggest societal norm that you want to push back on and teach others about?
That's an excellent question. The biggest societal norm that I want to push back on
and help others get past.
It has to do with aspirations versus actions. And, I have a lot of, like, all my friends are dudes because I'm a guy, and 20, like, everyone's like 24 to 20 years old, and that's like an integral part of like a man's life. It's like they're really trying to find their purpose, starting to make some money, graduate college, maybe find his wife. And like a lot of that comes with, like, there's a lot of aspirations that come with that, as far as like, oh, I want to make X amount of dollars, or I want to have a wife and 6 kids or whatever. Like, there's a ton of aspirations in this time period. And I would really like men specifically to judge themselves on their actions, not their aspirations. So it's one thing to say like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this in the future, I'm going to do that in the future. And like that makes you feel good because you get that dopamine in that moment by telling someone else that you're going to do that. And like, that'll give you that short win, but it's all about your actions. Like, don't tell people what you're going to do, just do it. And then after you did it, tell them what you did. So really focusing on actions and judging yourself by your actions and holding yourself accountable by your actions, not your aspirations. That is the one societal norm, I would say, specifically for men. That applies to women for sure, but like, I just can speak as a man, and like with my friend group and everything, like a lot of friends who say they'll do this when this happens, or that when this happens. And it's like, it makes them feel good in the moment, but you got to hold yourself accountable and judge yourself based on the actions you take.
Facts right there. All those dopamine hits. It's like social media, but like we're doing it to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Anyhow, thank you so much for coming on. You can check out the podcast show notes for details on the Marketing Millennials and Aiden. And if you'd like to help this show reach more ears, drop a 5-star review is a great way to do that. And when you're ready to shift your business from just another to the obvious, visit badasserybyb.com to get started. Thank you for listening, you badasses. Woot woot.
Time for bloopers. Yay!
For me, it is for sure. I mean, it is a little more stiff. Like I have like 6 hats over here. One I wear all the time and it just like fits perfectly on my head. This one's like stiff right now for sure. So I got to wear it in, but I also got to like look at myself in it, make sure I look good in it, you know?
So you're testing it out in a podcast.
Oh yeah.
So you're like, okay, do I get the approval of like everybody who may or may not watch like, you know, these clips and be like, okay, I like this cap. I'm going to buy a Baltimore Football Club something city.
Charm City.
There we go. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so if these clips go viral, I love Baltimore. I got to rep the hometown. So when they go viral, Baltimore's going to get some love.
Okay. All right. Well, we're just going to clip this part out and be like, okay, this is the the teaser for the whole podcast. Like, guys, you have to watch this because we're breaking in a cap. Like, this is
We're talking hats today. Forget branding. We're talking hats.
I mean, heels, I get. Breaking in heels, fine. But like hats? I don't know.
See, I've never had to break in heels.
You should try.
Heck no. Wait, can I cuss on this or no?
Sorry?
Can I cuss on this or no?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, I figured since you were saying badassery, I figured I could, but just got to make sure.
See, badassery is not cussing. Is it really where you're at? It's cussing?
Yeah, like if you're a badass, it's like, I mean, there's way worse things you can say, but like if a 12-year-old says badass, it's like, that's a cuss word. Like you can't say that.
Do parents know what it means? Like, have they Googled it?
Well, yeah. I mean, is ass not a like a curse word from like where you are?
I mean, not so much. It's like a body part.
It's like a curse word here. It's like on the same level as like shit and damn. Like if you're a kid, you're not saying ass or badass.
Very intense. Like, okay, I'm taking notes and like taking those notes, scrapping those notes, very poorly throwing them into the rubbish bin because like hand-eye coordination non-existent.
Oh my God.
I mean, Google definition. What is it? Dictionary definition of badassery is doing something exceptionally well. So I'm just like, really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not against it, but if I said that when I was 12,
just like
parents would have been pissed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as far as I know, this is kiddo not rated. Like, do not listen for kiddos. So we're good.
Sweet.
All right.
Let's go.
Let's go.